All right, I'm being joined by Mr. Oji Udemezwe, the CEO of Flame Academy and Consulting. Good morning, Mr. Udemezwe. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Chimeze. It's always my pleasure to be on your platform. Channel TV, the best TV station in Nigeria. Well done.
You're welcome. All right, now the third quarter GDP numbers released yesterday by the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that Nigeria's economic growth rate is still crawling. So where is the place of human capital development when we talk about GDP growth rate?
All right, Chimeze, you know, when you talk about GDP growth rate, it's about economic productivity, the value, final value of goods and services. Oh, can you hear me, Chimeze?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr.
Right,
Oji, clearly.
It's about the value of goods and services produced within the boundaries of an economy over a period of time. And human beings are the ones who who run these activities. Whether you're talking about oil and gas sector, agricultural sector, financial services, hospitality, and all of that, medical services, human beings drive these activities. And when they are driving these activities at a very optimal level with low preparation, low skills development, low education, poor quality morale or low motivation and all of that, you find that you can barely grow. In this fourth industrial revolution, economies around the world are driven mainly by human capital. If your people are not ready to capture opportunities, driven mainly by big data, Internet of Things, digital transformation and all of that, and you're putting your curriculum to play up to that, you find that you cannot grow. Entrepreneurship is a special input factor in every economy. When you talk about factor of production, entrepreneurship is the organizing factor of land, capital, labor, and so on. So when you have a country where people do not have entrepreneurial skills or they don't have proper education that can produce results, whether in services production or goods production, that economy can only crawl. It cannot grow to full capacity.
Right. Now, the federal government's national development plan was structured along 5 clusters, and human capital development is one of them, with an investment size of about 348.7 trillion naira. What do you hope to see, in the area of human capital, and looking at this chunk of money being channeled to this new development plan? I mean, we keep coming up with so many plans.
Well, talking about 300-something trillion, that's a very funny figure because I don't think Nigeria has the capacity to generate that amount of money even in the next 100 years. We're talking about an economy whose actual revenue today is largely less than 5 trillion per annum. So even when you want to borrow, you cannot borrow yourself to debt. So that could be a plan. It's just a way of stating that we have a very huge gap in that sector, educational sector and the health sector. So we have good intentions, but how serious are we about, actualizing these intentions? If you look at government budget in the past years, the allocation to the educational sector, it is still far, far, far below the UNESCO standard of about 20 to 26% of budget being given to education. Nigeria has wobbled between 5% to 10%. Even now, the current president is making effort, as he promised in a conference last year, in the UK. He promised that he will ramp up a budget allocation to the education sector to a UNESCO standard, but we are still seeing something far below that. In the 2022 budget, about 1.1 trillion is being allocated to education sector, but a huge part of that is for recurrent expenditure. We are not spending strategically to ensure that we have proper infrastructure in our universities, educational centers, skill acquisition centers, and entrepreneurship development centers in this country. And we're not seeing even any seriousness in our public schools, where you see a professor today earning less than 500,000 in about $1,000, when their colleagues around the world are earning 10 times that. So we're not yet serious about channeling more funds to human capital development. We're still playing, words of, semantics around it. And that's very sad. If you want your people to develop, you must spend in providing digital access, quality education, a strong handshake between the town and the gown, the universities and the industrial segment. No research work is being done today by professors in our universities to support the industrial sector. So there's a big gap between the graduates that we turn out and then the actual skills needed to produce good results in today's technology-driven economy around the world.
And taking it from what you're saying, I mean, this week we're seeing ASU also threatening to go back on another industrial strike. I mean, how does that come across to you after what was experienced last year?
It tells you how most unserious we are. This government has never kept their promises to ASU. They keep playing tom-tom, tumbon with our educational sector. It's very, very sad. This government is spending heavy on very unimportant things and then joking with, very serious matters. No government anywhere in the world, you can quote me and write it down, no government that jokes with its human capital sector, the educational sector, and at the same time, hope to achieve any reasonable, sustainable, inclusive growth in that economy. Education, by the way, is the only instrument you can use to eradicate poverty, in one generation. Show me any poor family, extremely poor family today, and train one child there, get the child educated properly. Let me tell you, in the next 25 years, that family's fortune will change totally. Nigeria, unfortunately, today is still the poverty capital of the world, where we are churning out more than 100 million extremely poor people in a population of 200 million or thereabouts. China and India, that have far, far above that, about 1.6 billion population, have much less, extremely poor people than us. And the only way out of it is not the semantic, the game of words that we play about this sector. It's about channeling enough funds to research our universities, equip our libraries, equip our laboratories, pay our lecturers very well, and build infrastructure around the schools, games and so on. And then, very importantly, in every university and every local government in this country, we have a very well-run, private sector-driven skills acquisition center, particularly ICT promotion, and of course, the popular STEM education. We must get serious with this. We must cut down the size of our government, where we pay billions to National Assembly, where we spend billions in campaigns, where we now dole out money to buy votes and so on. We have a huge security vote and all kinds of lifestyle expenses. Even when we borrow billions, like we are proposing to borrow $16 billion now, most of that borrowing is going to very non-productive expenditure. That's very sad for this nation that should be the giant of Africa.
Right. Now, the World Bank's last report on human capital development highlighted how current health and education outcomes shape the productivity of the next generation of workers and underscores the importance of government and societal investment in human capital, and just as you did mention. So, but how can the private sector, contribute to education and health as a sustainable development priority in Nigeria? I mean, I know that for these sectors, education, especially the private sector, is really playing so much role there. But then we find out that most of these private schools are even very, very expensive.
And that's the point there. When you want to drive inclusive and sustainable economic growth and development, you must find a way to make literacy a common parameter in the country. You must find a way to enable people to have access to quality education without breaking the banks. If we all go to the US to study, you find that you break the bank, you pay millions to go and study there, but US citizens pay next to nothing. So how can we make our education sector attractive to bring in foreign investment at the same time? That's actually where we need the most of subsidy we should be having in this economy. But many poor families cannot even feed. People are earning below 40,000 in a month with master's degree, and you find that a family with 4 children, how can they send their children to university? Even though our federal university, let me still say it, commend the government so far on that, the school fees there is still very paltry and cheap, so to speak. But then, what's the quality of education they're getting at that? So I think the private sector must be called in a way that will be very, cost-effective for the students. Chimele, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly well.
Okay,
I can hear you perfectly well.
We already have a reasonable amount of private sector investment in that sector, but a lot more needs to be done, not just in the university system or secondary school system, but also in the health sector. So human capital covers education and health and recreation, even hospitality and all of that. So government needs to create a proper legal and regulatory framework to encourage private sector people to play in that segment and bring in more players there so that when we have more players, more like a monopolistic competition or even a perfect competition, you can have the buyers, having a better pricing system in that sector. Time was when people were coming from everywhere around the world, from India, from China, from US, from Ghana, around Africa, to study in Nigerian universities, University of Ibadan, UNN, and all of that. Today, Nigerians are seeking every opportunity to study even in Benin Republic, in Ghana, and so on. So that's a very bad reversal of investment trend. We need to bring in quality investment where government gives a very encouraging level playing ground for people to invest in our educational sector and even in the health sector. Why should we be going to the US to go and do organ transplant and all of that, or to Germany or India or China and so on? Why can't we encourage great private sector investment in our health sector, in the educational sector, in skills acquisition center, so that we will have enough to train our people? Nigerians do so well everywhere else in the world. Nigerians are the top medical directors you see in the US and around the world, even in UK. Nigeria's human capital is powerful everywhere else in the world, except in the boundaries called Nigeria. Something must be done strategically to drive human capital in this country and value our teachers, whether at the primary school level, secondary school level, university level. They must be paid well and motivated to bring up quality human capital for this economy to grow. That's my take.
All right, Mr. Udemezue, a quick one before I let you go. So what policy choices would you advocate to actually, deal with this and not just all about talk, but actions?
Yes, as usual for me, I don't like just criticizing or commenting. I like to give solutions. One, this government must come down their high horses and engage our university managers effectively. For federal universities, I'm speaking about it because if we make the federal university system expand more and become effective, we'll have cheaper education to this country. One, they must take the lecturers seriously, engage them, and keep your promises to them. Pay them better. A professor in this country cannot be earning less than ₦1 million, just to say the least. So when you pay them well, then you ensure that their payment system is automated. The IPPIS system must be implemented in the educational sector, even if the lecturers don't want it. You have to pay them well, then insist that the payment is done, well-integrated payment system. That's one. Then government must cut down the size of government. We spend so much in recurrent expenditure in this country, and so much of that is wastage. We have several government agencies that are duplicating their functions and so on, and many are redundant. Let's shut them down. Let's shut down the size of our legislature and so on, and channel more funds because we don't have enough revenue yet. Channel more funds towards the education sector, and and then again, let us encourage private sector, engagement, PPP level, license more universities that are very well set up, and then very importantly, partner with their consultants like us, training and capacity development institutions to develop, entrepreneurship centers around every local government and make it available for people to come and learn how to grow snails, learn how to export agricultural produce, learn how to use digital technology to run their businesses, learn how to do all IT things. That is what we must begin to look at right now in our government policies. That's practical enough, I think.
Always a pleasure to have you on the program, Mr. Udemezue.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much, Chimezia.
Thank you. After the break, we'll look at the importance of data to national planning and development. Do stay with us.